O Tannenbaum, with faithful leaves unchanging. O Tannenbaum, with faithful leaves unchanging. Not only green in summer's heat, but also winter's snow and sleet. O Tannenbaum, with faithful leaves unchanging.
Deep in a forest grew tall fir trees. They reached up towards the sky and stood straight and proud. Their boughs were thickly coated with hard fir fronds, which spread so wide that the forest floor beneath was ever in their shadow. The tall firs had reason to be proud. When the woodcutters came and the time was right, the tallest and straightest of the trees would be cut down and stripped of their branches. The smooth, slender trunks would then be taken away to be used as masts for equally tall ships, which sailed across the mightiest oceans. These lofty trees forever boasted that they would travel the world in this way, clad in shimmering sails like royal cloaks. But not all the trees in the forest were so proud. Beneath the heavily coated firs were smaller trees. These trees were not tall, for to gain growth a tree needs sunshine and water. The taller trees blocked out the sunshine and their branches soaked up most of the rain. Under the ground their roots were stronger and sucked in most of the moisture and nourishment provided by the rich forest soil. This meant that the smaller trees would always remain stunted and weak. While their taller cousins boasted, the smaller trees grumbled. Even the swallows and the squirrels prefer to live in the branches of the taller trees. Only one bird seemed to enjoy hopping through the branches of the smaller firs. This bird was the fire-chested robin. The robin hopped amongst the smaller trees and in a hushed voice explained that those sailing ships were no more. But now those taller trees were to be used to carry telegraph wires across the country, and would spend the rest of their time stood by the side of a dusty road. No sails, no great oceans, and no foreign lands. One day, the forest awoke to the sound of axes against wood, shouts of "Timber!" and the crash of falling trees. It was near Christmastide, and while the tall trees were excited about their new lives on the high seas, the smaller trees were also excited. The robin had informed them that at this time of the year many of the smaller trees would be cut down too. They were to be taken to the market and sold as decorations in people's homes. They would end up in the corner of a beautiful warm room, decked with fruit tied with gaily coloured ribbons and lit by sparkling candles which represented the stars which glistened in the night sky, but yet unseen through the thick branches of those mighty ones. The foresters worked hard, first cutting down the tall trees, stripping their branches and loading them onto a large wagon. Then they began to cut down the smaller trees. Soon the work was completed, and the woodcutters brought up a team of strong horses to haul the heavy wagon down the hill. Unseen by anybody, one small straggly fir tree remained. Perhaps the foresters had thought it too small to be of any use. Now this tree sadly watched as the others headed for those warm homes, all alone, but for the comforting chirp of the small robin. And suddenly there came a shout from the wagon, and the fir tree saw the chief forester pointing back up the hill. A figure jumped off the wagon and rang back. By a strange chance, the forester had spotted the small tree, and one of them was coming back to collect him. When the man reached the tree, he was out of breath. He began to grumble when he realized that he'd forgotten to bring his axe. The man was not prepared to go back down the hill again, so he rolled up his sleeves, grabbed the stem of the tree, and pulled with all his strength, tore the tree from the ground, roots and all. So it was that the little fir tree rekindled its hope of sitting in a cosy room dressed in Christmas finery. It was Christmas Eve, and the Christmas tree seller was busy selling trees to the townfolk. Of course, everybody wanted one, and by the end of the day all the trees had gone. All except the little fir tree, which had been cast aside for bigger and more attractive trees. The little tree was once again beginning to feel it would be left behind, unwanted, when suddenly he heard urgent voices speaking to the market trader. A lady and gentleman had a small child who was very ill, so ill that he was unable to raise the smallest smile on his sad young face. Fearing that this could be their last Christmas with this little child, the parents wished to make it a splendid celebration in the hope that they could give the child good cheer. Sadly, they were too late to buy a fine tree, as the little fir tree was the only one that remained in the whole market. Rather than return home empty-handed, they purchased the tree. That night they stood the little tree in a beautiful room, just like it had seen in its dreams, and decorated it with shiny baubles and bright candles. The tree caught sight of itself in the reflection of a large mirror hung over a crackling fire. It was amazed at how grand it looked. The next morning, the oak door to the beautiful room opened very slowly, and a small, timid face peered around it. Our tree had never seen anything that looked as delicate and as sad as the face that now met his gaze. The little boy stared at the sparkling little tree, and then suddenly his whole face seemed to be filled with a new spirit. The dull eyes began to sparkle as they reflected the tree's light. The pale face filled with colour, and best of all, the mouth broke into a huge smile. The boy uttered an excited squeal of delight as he ran for the first time towards the tree. He reached out and stroked the branches and laughed as they tickled his little face. The tree caught sight of the parents who'd rushed into the room on hearing his cries. There were tears in the man and the woman's eyes as they watched a little miracle come into their lives. All through Christmas, the child continued to improve in health. His cheeks became rosy as every morning he welcomed his new friend and marvelled at the beauty of this little fir tree. When the short season of Christmas ended, it was tradition to burn the old tree and scatter its ashes across the garden. But the parents were quick to hear the pleas of their young son, and seeing that its roots were still intact, they decided to replant the tree outside the little boy's bedroom window. Each morning, he would look out and give the tree a wave, and aided by a friendly breeze, the tree would wave back. This story happened many years ago, so we can tell you, dear listener, that as the tree grew older, the boy grew healthier. The tree grew until soon it could tap on the window with its branches. And one day, a robin visited the garden and recognized an old friend from the forest. He built a nest in its branches, and another family adopted the fir tree. The boy grew to a man, and each Christmas his family visited to marvel at this tall and elegant fir.
O Tannenbaum, of all the trees most lovely. O Tannenbaum, of all the trees most lovely. Each year you bring to me delight, gleaming in the Christmas night. Tannenbaum, of all the trees most lovely.